Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
And of course, I just realized I have no clue if you heard any of that intro music. Probably not. All right, something else to check on.
What you have to do is when you share the screen, click the box that says.
Well, that's just it. I'm not really sharing. I'm not sharing the screen through Zoom. I'm just kind of like through OBS right now. So, few little hiccups that we're going to encounter. Something to put on my little to-do list of things to do. All right, so tonight's edition is Lightroom edition. I'm going to be going over all the new things that Adobe has packed into the latest update of Lightroom Classic, and there are quite a few to go over. But before I get into that, I want to publicly announce to all my Patreons, thank you for your support. Your monetary donations has helped me to purchase Zoom in order to utilize a much stabler platform in order to bring this content to you guys. So I want to thank you guys. And I have my Zoom patrons scrolling down there. All right. And we got a couple here. We got Bill. We got Brian. Who else? Jill, I think you're a Patreon, right? Yeah. Okay. So I want to thank you guys for making this possible for me. It's hopefully a beneficial update. Coming up with the Hartford Amateur, let's see, I can never remember. The Hartford Amateur Photographers Group on Facebook. Those of you who may be familiar with Robert Fielder, that's his group on Facebook. He and I are getting together and we're going to be doing an architectural walkabout in Norwich coming up later this month on the 25th, which is a Saturday. We're going to be starting around 10 o'clock in the morning. And we're going to go to about 3 o'clock, and we're going to hit a couple areas in Norwich, basically the historical section with some really, really old houses. And then we're going to go a little bit further down the street to St. Patrick's Cathedral. And then a few of the mansions in that area. And then, depending on how it goes, we may take a short ride. I think it's like a 2 to 5 minute ride to a waterfall in the area to shoot some waterfall. But anyhow, the walkabout is basically learning how to handle live lighting events for architectural photography, trying to find suitable angles, how to compensate for certain lens issues. And how to look for, architectural detail that may be of interest to photograph. So it's going to be a very interesting walkabout. And along the way, Robert's going to share some of his knowledge of the area. He's a big history buff, so he's going to clue us in a little bit about the history of some of the buildings, some of the history of the area. We're going to take a cut through a cemetery. A pretty old cemetery from what I understand, with some of the earliest settlers of the area. So we're going to be doing quite a bit of different shooting. So if you can join us on the 25th, that'd be great. Like I said, it's from 10 o'clock to roughly about 3 o'clock. We do ask for a voluntary $10 donation. It's going to kind of offset some of the costs that Rich and I have accrued. Plus, we're also donating a portion of that to the Norwich Historical Society. I figure since we're photographing historical buildings in the area, they put a lot of time and effort into that. We're just going to kick some of it back to help support their efforts as well. In addition, the Monday following, which is the 27th, at 6 o'clock, it's not a day that I usually stream because it's at the end of the month, but I'm going to be doing a special Monday night streaming of how to edit all the images that I've taken on that field trip. So if you attend a field trip, you're going to get a special Zoom link to our Monday night session, which I'm going to walk you through my workflow, some of the things that I look for when I'm editing the architectural images. And because you, if you attend, because you were there and you're taking the same images, hopefully it'll give you a little idea of how I approach things. That may give you a little bit of an insight, a little kickstart, a little, inspiration to your own editing, or if you are unsure of how to approach it, it gives you a starting point. So hopefully you'll join us on the 25th and 27th. In addition, I have not set any dates yet, but I'm looking to set a date for a multiplicity shoot. And if things go good, I'm probably going to do 2 of them. One in my area here in the Shelton area. So it'll be Shelton, Bridgeport, New Haven-ish area, somewhere around here. And then another one probably closer to the center of the state. I haven't said anything, so we'll see. But if anybody's interested, also, apparently there's a steampunk photo shoot on the 11th at Wickham Park. I think it's been shared with a few of the photography groups. So if you haven't seen that fly through your Facebook feed, you might want to keep a lookout for it. I don't know too much about it. It's not my event. It's not Robert's event. It's something that somebody else shared with us. But I'm looking forward to attending that one, barring anything going wrong on my end. So hopefully we'll see you there. Let's see what else. That's pretty much it. Other events that I would like to get on the schedule is a photo hunt. They've been popular in the past, and maybe even a couple of outdoor lighting, portrait lighting workshops where we're taking flash and mixing it with the ambient light. So we'll see what happens. All right. So that's that for the up and coming news, and I think that's it. All right. So let's get into this this whole new product. All right. So I'm going to switch over to desktop. Hopefully you can all see my desktop. All right. I have a lot of notes to go through. All right. I'm going to try to take it in order of like the simplest to the more advanced. So if at any point you feel lost, don't be afraid. Just, say, hey, Doc, can you explain? Maybe just because of the streaming, I don't know. I hope none of my pictures are blurry. Oh yeah, that could be because of the streaming. So, all right. I am recording this, so if at any point you say, well, I really don't grasp it right now, I'll just rewatch it later. You're more than welcome to rewatch it later. Okay. All right. So let me just get my notes here. All right. First off, the latest issue of Lightroom CC has put in Lightroom CC Classic. All right. We're talking about Classic. We're not talking about the mobile version. All right. I have very little experience with the mobile version simply because the mobile version still has way too limitations for my needs. All right. This is basically going to be just for the Classic. All right. They've built in a bunch of performance upgrades that you won't necessarily notice up front. Some you will notice, some you won't. But basically, they've gone under the hood and really did some tweaking in order to enhance the performance of Lightroom. The ultimate goal, as you probably can already cross-platform, all right, and cross-device compatible. All right, that's why we have Lightroom Mobile, in order for people to be able to use Lightroom products and Photoshop products from a tablet. It allows photographers who work mobily, whether it's architectural photographers who are out in the field, product photographers like me that go on location, headshot photographers that go on location. It allows them to work remotely from a desktop and still have the most amount of features to be able to edit their images and be able to share them across multiple platforms. All right. That said, they've done a lot of changes to the cloud syncing. Now, I know cloud syncing, a lot of people don't quite understand what that means. It does not mean that your images go into some Adobe server and that's it. You have no access to your images. It doesn't work that way. You have 100% ownership of your images. The cloud is just a way of getting your images from one location to another location. So if you're on location remotely, you can send your images to the cloud and be able to download them on your desktop later. Okay, so it allows a lot of flexibility. A few other under the hood things. The going from Lightroom to Photoshop, they've expanded the functionality, which is pretty awesome for those of us who, like for me, I do 99% of my editing is in Lightroom. The 1 or 2% that is done in Photoshop, I take it from Lightroom to Photoshop and then back to Lightroom. That's my workflow. All right. So the two programs interact with each other, and they've been able to, really simplify the process, and they've made it easier to work with some of the bigger files within Photoshop. All right. So Photoshop, when it receives an image, you understand that, hopefully all of you are shooting RAW. Okay. That's going to maximize the amount of information that you can get out of your image. However, when it goes from from Lightroom to Photoshop, it does not export the raw file. What it's actually doing is it's creating a secondary file format, working on that, and then it brings that back in. Okay, and you can have it depending on how you want to set it up. You can have it so it goes over as a PSD file, which is normally suggested, or it can go over as a TIFF file. Now, in the past, the TIFF file was a little better than the PSD file because it allowed you to retain a lot more editing information. File. All right. A couple years ago, Photoshop came out with a PSB file. If you're not familiar with that, just think of it as a Photoshop big file, which allows you to retain a lot more layer information than a normal PSD file. PSD file was limited to, it capped off, I can't remember how many megabytes, but there was a cap as to how much, how big the file size could get. To get over that limitation, they created the PSB file, which allows you to have larger files. While it's not really suggested on a normal working environment, there are people in the industry who require that. So in order to accommodate those people, they came out with the PSB. However, PSB was not supported in Lightroom. Now it is. Okay. So the other improvement is scrolling. Scrolling through the images has gotten a lot smoother. All right. And another thing that has gotten kind of similar to that is when you are editing an image, there are actually 3 images being displayed on screen. All right. You have your main window, which is, the area that you're working in. You have your film strip down at the bottom. All right. Where's my okay, you have your film strip and you have your navigator window. All right. In the past, what happened is if you made a change in the editing window, let's say you bump the exposure, all right, as you were making your changes, the film strip and the navigator would also move at the same time. Now what they've done is they've separated it in order to conserve a little bit of more of the processing power. And if you notice, as I go back, the the navigator window and the film strip window does not change until after I've let go of the slider. Once I let go of the slider, it goes and updates the previews. So it seems like a minor, insignificant change, to us, but as far as processing under the hood, it's a very significant change. So kudos for them for figuring that one out. Other improvements that you don't really see is search and filtering. And this is more significant for people who have larger libraries, kind of like what I do, because my library goes all the way back to like 2008. All right. It allows you to be able to search through that a little bit faster and a little quicker. So it's the same thing. All right. So search improvements, filtering improvements. They made it faster. All right. The scrubbing edit sliders. All right. These are the sliders that we see here. All right. By default, they are in the center. Center means 0. Go to one side, it's plus. Go to the other side, it's negative. All right. And if you grab it, you can actually let me grab something that you can actually see. There we go. All right. You can make very broad changes. All right. One of the things they added is if you hold the Shift key, it will allow you to make micro adjustments. All right. If you've ever tried to make little micro adjustments with a mouse, you know how frustratingly difficult that is. All right. If you want to go 1 point, 2 points, all right, it's very frustrating. Now, if you just press and hold the Shift key, and now you can drag further on your mouse, but on the screen it's going to be small increments. So that's a big help. Okay. So minor change, but you can see how useful that is. All right. Okay, we talked about the PSB support, the TIFF support. Okay. Any questions so far? That's pretty standard self-descriptive. Okay. They've made a bunch of user interface adjustments. Okay. One of the goals is to try to get all their programs across the board having a unified look. This makes it easier for, like, for example, as I mentioned earlier, I often go from Lightroom to Photoshop back to Lightroom. So it's nice when I make the transition from one program to the other program that the both of them look similar and behave similarly. Especially because Lightroom is pretty much Adobe Camera Raw as a standalone program. So if you've ever noticed in the past when you go from Lightroom to Adobe Camera Raw, they were completely different. What they've done now is they've tried to make the UI of both systems a lot more similar. Now, my personal opinion is they made these changes to get them closer looking to each other. Why not go all the way and just make them both the same? Why do they need to step it in between? I don't know, but I'm not a programmer over there. I don't know what kind of hurdles they have to jump over, but in my opinion, they could have made both looking the exact same thing, and they would have solved the problem right away. All right. But obviously, of course, what I don't understand is that there are people who use Photoshop who also do video editing. And there are some changes that need to happen over with, like Adobe After Effects and things like that. So I'm sure there's a reason to their madness, but it's nice to see that they're finally considering, a more unified look across all their programs, right? Because if you think back, those of you who have been using, Adobe products from way in the beginning, a lot of the products they have now, they actually bought from other companies and then implemented it into their own, community, right? So a lot of the programs they brought over had completely different UIs, separate from what would be considered an Adobe normal. So finally they're trying to make everything cohesive. All right. Another very minor, but in my opinion, a needed change is in their logo. It ticked me off to no end when they decided to go from Lightroom and Lightroom Mobile to Lightroom Classic. Created a lot of confusion. People who are used to calling Lightroom, all right, and Lightroom Mobile, now all of a sudden have to call Lightroom Mobile Lightroom, and what they normally call Lightroom is now Lightroom Classic. All right, so that created a lot of confusion. But to add to the confusion, the only differentiation between Lightroom Classic and Lightroom Mobile in the logo design was the rounded corners of the outer box. Whoopee. Who can remember what those two were? I couldn't. All right. So now they finally said, hey, we're going to label Lightroom Classic as LRC, and Lightroom Mobile is just going to be Lightroom. All right. So now if you look, actually, I have a custom logo on mine. But if you have the default program on yours, if you look up in the corner, you're going to see an LRC. And I don't know if you can see down in the corner there, the logo for Lightroom Classic is just LRC. All right, insignificant but helpful. All right, all right. Now for some of the more noticeable changes. One of them is in the visual style of the the sync. For those of you who do use Lightroom Mobile and sync back and forth, if you look up in the corner, you're going to see a little cloud icon right up there. All right. When you click on that, it's going to give you a pop-out giving you all what your cloud storage is. All right. If you're in the photographic package, it comes with 20 gigabytes, as part of your package. All right. Remember, cloud sync storage is to allow you to sync between systems and between devices. It's not for long-term storage. Don't use it as a backup. It's not meant for that. All right. It's meant to be able to temporarily take your working files, be able to put it on the cloud, be able to work remotely, and then when you're done, take it down from the cloud and back it up as you would normally. All right. But this allows you to see what's in there. All right. And keep in mind that the cloud storage is not just for images. All right. I send presets up there. I send brushes and textures up there. I send actions up there. Okay. So it allows me to use it for other things other than just images. Okay. All right. And yeah.
And I don't know if this is pertinent to what you're talking about now. Oops, just minimize. Hold on. What you're talking about with the cloud, and what I do sometimes is I will take pictures on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to be able to, some of them work on in Lightroom on my computer.
Correct.
And so far I haven't had a real good way of getting them from phone to computer. This cloud business we're talking about, is that a way to do that? I mean, I have Lightroom on my phone and I touch around with it.
Right.
I import stuff. So does that mean that that's available to me somehow through?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can sync your mobile device with your desktop. All right. How? I'm not 100% sure, simply because I do not use Lightroom Mobile. All right. So I'm not 100. I can't say definitively this is how you do it. All right. I know. Trust me, Brian. I kick myself for not having jumped into it because I do get people asking questions. And there are occasions where in my own workflow, I realize it would be easier if I had Lightroom Mobile, but I don't use it often enough to warrant me loading it up onto my system. It's just, for me, it's one more piece of hardware taking up room on my laptop that I don't need for the one or two occasional times that I'm going to be using it. That said, should I do it because I teach Lightroom? Yeah.
So you said that what you're talking about here with this syncing with the cloud, to do that, then Lightroom Mobile needs to be installed on the same machine?
No. Lightroom Mobile and Lightroom Classic will talk to each other. That's what it's for. Okay. Lightroom Mobile is kind of like a stripped down version of Lightroom Classic. It doesn't have all the functionalities, but it has enough to get you editing images to a certain level. All right. And it's designed, basically, it's designed for remote location shooting, where you need to share it with a client, but you don't want to share that raw image without some kind of process. All right. Anybody, those of you watching this, if there's any grain of salt to your photography, you are doing some form of editing to your images. You're not just shooting it, uploading it, however it lands out of your camera and loading and sharing it on, social network. Hopefully you're doing some kind of color correcting, maybe correcting your horizon lines, doing some kind of temperature control, maybe enhancing details, correcting for your lenses, things like that. Hopefully you're doing at least the bare minimum of editing before sending it out. Lightroom Mobile allows you to do that so that your images don't look flat and unprocessed when you're sharing it with clients. Okay? So for me, is Lightroom Mobile the end all right now? No, it's not. Is it, Adobe's end goal to go to a fully mobile? There's no definitive answer, but I would posit that yes, that's probably their end. Software that we're using nowadays is moving. It's not just Adobe that's going, to the cloud. How many programs are you using that are web-based right now? All right. I use Google products all the time. Google Documents, Google Spreadsheets, Google Slides. That's all web-based programming. I don't have a single stitch of software other than, retaining the actual file on my system. Okay. So there's a strong movement to going mobilely. And eventually, Lightroom Classic will no longer be a thing, simply because Lightroom Mobile will have all the processing power and the functionality that Lightroom Classic has now. It's still a ways away. We still have, the hardware end needs to kind of catch up. The bandwidth that we're dealing with has to catch up. So there's still a lot of external limitations, but it's moving in that direction. So anyhow. All right, so that's, your syncing. All right, if you want to learn more on that little panel right there, there is a, let's see, there's a little sync AFQ link that will allow you to just click on that and it'll answer a lot of your questions. Okay? Yeah, that was my bad. I hit the wrong button. I'm an idiot. Okay. Hopefully, yes, okay, good. I hit the wrong button on my stream deck. All right, so the tone curve and the color tab now look a little bit different. All right, pretty much still the same functionality. They've added a couple little things that I'll get into, but pretty much still the same functionality. They just redesigned the way it's presented. And again, this goes to making it uniform across the various programs. All right, so now you can see that we have circle graphics to represent the RGB values, and we have a white one to represent, all three. And of course, we still have our parametric curve, which is the default when you first come to a tone curve. All right, and parametric means that it just when you click on it, you're going to see this bright area get highlighted. That is the full range. All right, that slider, that area can move within without really distorting your image. All right, so that allows you to really make modifications to very specific parts of the tone curve without changing the entire length. All right, so let me just reset that. So if I want to work just on my shadow area, all right, if I hover over the shadow area, which is all the way over to the left hand side, you'll notice that only a small little section of that gets highlighted. Okay, that means when I move within this area, none of my highlights are being affected because they're being shielded from being affected. Okay, which is unlike the normal tone curve that we're used to, which is called a point curve, where we put a point, and if we move that, it moves the entire length of the curve. All right, so if I manipulate my midtones, it is also making changes to my shadows and making changes to my highlights. All right, so the parametric allows you a little bit, more of controlled editing, while this one allows you to do much broader edits. All right, but the thing is, here is where we can make changes to just the red, the green, or the blue channel. Now, one of the nice things that Lightroom did is the minute you click on one of those RGBs, if you note, I don't know if it's noticeable here, but it throws in kind of like this little colored overlay. Right, so when I click on the red channel, if you notice up in the upper left corner, there's a gradient of red. All right, and then in the lower right corner, it kind of turns into this kind of like green tone. All right, and those of you who have done editing in Photoshop with me understand that RGB, the opposite of RGB, is CMY. All right. See here we have red in the upper, and then we have that cyan color in the lower corner. All right. If we go to the green, we have the opposites. We have green and magenta. And then in the blue, we have blue and yellow. So we are seeing a visual representation of our opposite colors. So now you don't have to remember it. All you have to do is look at the screen, and the screen will tell you. So in this case, if I want to add blue, I go to my blue channel and I bring my tone curve up, and it adds blue. If I want to add yellow, all I got to do is bring that point curve down, and it adds yellow. Okay? So that makes it a little bit easier to see. All right? And then in the color, all right, the color tab has two sections. It has the HSL, which is hue, saturation, and lightness, or luminance. And then it has the color. All right, now, the thing is, both those parts do the exact same thing. It's just presented to you slightly differently. Okay, so if we look at the hue, saturation, luminance, all right, we're going to see hue, saturation, and luminance has all the colors: red, orange, yellow, green, aqua, blue, purple, and magenta. So in the luminance panel, I can make changes to all of these colors within the luminance. I can then go up to my saturation and do the same thing. All right, everybody follow that? When we switch over, let me reset that. When we switch over to, and here you can also do them one at a time. So you can click on the hue, you can click on the saturation, you can click on the luminance, and it'll display one at a time, okay? Or you can do them all, like I showed you. When we flip over to the color side, all right, we have red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, magenta, and then all the colors together, okay? All the colors is every single color, but for each color you're going to see hue, saturation, and luminance. All right. So what it is it's just displaying the sliders in a slightly different way. Where the HSL shows you like hue and all the colors, with the color it's the color and all the sliders. All right. I don't know if that makes sense to you. All right. It's just two slightly different ways of working, whichever way makes it easier for you to comprehend. All right. But basically they do the same thing. The only thing they changed is that they made these into these round icons in order to be able to pick out the colors a little bit easier. Okay. So at a very quick glance, you can see which color is being picked because it's got that more solid outline with that little white dot. All right. So at a glance, it's just easier to see. Okay. All right. So that's the tone curve, color. All right. The other thing that this is kind of nice in the develop module. Okay. Let's see. Am I in? Let me see. Oh, here we go. In the library module. Okay. The library module allows you to do multiple edits. In the quick develop. All right. So you can select, multiple images, go to the quick develop and be able to make, the global changes, and it's going to apply them to every single one. All right. In the develop module, we kind of have the same ability, but it's a little bit more difficult because where in the grid view, you can see multiple images. In the develop module, we only see one image. Okay. But what we can do is down in the film strip, we can select multiple images and be able to edit one, but carry those edits across to the other ones that are selected. And the way you do that is with the sync button down on the bottom of the develop panel. All right. Now, the way you can work with this is one of two ways. All right. You make all your changes. All right. You have your multiple images selected. So I have, in this case, I have the hawk and I have the owl. All right. I can make my changes to one. Okay. And if you notice, it made the change to the hawk. It did not make the change over here. Did not make the change to the owl. once I hit the sync button, all right, I can select what it is that I want to synchronize, all right, and in this case, it's, a basic tone. I can hit the synchronize, and then it carries that across to everything else that's selected, all right. So it makes it nice where you basically do the work once, and then you can populate additional images with that synchronize button, okay? But as you notice, it requires you to actively make that change, all right? Now, this is nothing new. Lightroom has had this in the past, and that is where on the side of the sync button, let me just make that, on the side of the sync button, there's a little toggle. And if you hit that toggle, that sync button now changes to an auto sync. Okay? Now, if you notice, that auto sync button is now lit up. Okay? It used to be that when you hit that little auto sync button, the change in the status of how that button looked wasn't significant. And a lot of people did not realize that they were synced because the sync state from on and off were so similar, people didn't realize it. So it's one of those very minor little changes that just adds a big impact. Now you can really, really see that sync button. It's really bright, very well lit up. You can tell when it's on and when it's off. All right. Again, minor, but those of you who, like me, I use the auto sync all the time. All right. Because I tend to work on multiple images at the same time. I don't want to be dealing with, making selections and pop-ups and all of that, and then migrating it across. I want it to do it automatically for me without me thinking about it. Again, you've heard me say this before. When it comes to photography, I want to be as lazy as possible, right? Meaning that I don't want to have to put extra work if I don't have to. If I can find a tool that will do the work for me, I'm going to let that tool do it for me, and auto sync is one of those tools. Okay, so it's a minor little UI change, but for a lot of people, that's a significant change. Okay. Correct. But actually, for that specific scenario, I actually do that in the library module. I do a lot of my exposure and color leveling in the library module because it allows me to see all of them in that grid view. This one with the auto sync, they're a little bit more finessed changes that I do in the develop module. All right, and the auto sync allows me to do that. But yeah, you can if your workflow fits you better doing that in here in the develop module, absolutely. I just find being able to look at the grid is a lot easier than just looking at that film strip. So 6 of one, half dozen the other. All right. Yes. Yes. Let's see. All right. So sync button. Okay. Now the one that a lot of people have been wondering about, and I've been getting some questions about, is what is this new hue adjustment in the local adjustment layers? All right. This is one that seems to be confusing a lot of people. All right. So let me pull this image up. All right, all right. So Lightroom allows us to work in two areas, globally and locally. Globally means it does something to the entire image. Locally means it does something to a specific area that you tell Lightroom to do. All right. And we have certain tools to do it. All right. For example, with the basic tab, I have temperature control. I can make my images cooler or warmer. Okay. I have tint control. I can add magenta, magenta, and so forth. All right. I can make my exposure global because it's affecting the entire image. Okay. Up at the top, just below the histogram, we have all our local adjustment tools. The crop, the spot removal, red eye correction, which I hardly ever use. But these three I use all the time. My graduated filter, my circular filter, and my spot adjustment brush. Okay. Now these tools allow me to select very specific areas of an image. Now, within those tools, all right. So here's the graduated filter. Right here, they have added a hue slider. Okay. And this allows you to make color swaps. All right. So now, prior to that, if you wanted to make any kinds of color alteration on something, you had to kind of maneuver the temperature and tint sliders. Or just forget about it, send it out to Photoshop in order to make the color changes there. All right. Apparently, a lot of people were saying, hey, we need that capability in Lightroom for one reason or another. All right. Me personally, I can see the benefit of having it here, but I think for most of us, it's going to be a very small benefit. But let me just give you a prime example of how this works. Okay. I'm going to take my adjustment brush, all right, and I am going to paint on the yellow of her jacket. All right. Now I'm just painting. All right. And if I scroll down a little bit, actually, let me remove the histogram so I can make this panel fit the whole thing. Okay. Right at the top, the effect is a custom preset that I made. That's not what I want. So that's why you're seeing everything turn white. Okay. I'm going to say, I want to change the color. Hue means color. I want to change the color of that yellow from yellow to something else. All right. Well, I don't know. All right. And I also have, as you can see, I have auto mask on. That means it's going to auto detect my edges so that when I start painting on the yellow, it's going to say, oh, let's keep it to the yellow. Let's not go onto that gray area. Okay. If we want to see what we're doing, we hit the letter O for overlay, and it applies a ruby lift or a red tint that allows us to see exactly what our brush is painting. Okay? So that's just a visual reference for us as the editor. All right? So that way we know, did we get it all? All right? I can just take a look and say, okay, I think I got it all. All right? And because I have auto mask, it's going to do a fairly decent job at keeping it just to that yellow area. All right, because as soon as I start painting, I'm going to start painting from the yellow area and make my way to the edge. That way, Lightroom knows what it is that I'm supposed to be painting on. All right, so by clicking on the yellow first, it says, okay, this guy wants to edit the yellow. Good, got it. Okay. Now, if I go up to my hue slider, all right, let me turn the overlay off. If I go to the hue slider, all right, and I bring it over to the red, you can see that it starts changing the color to the red. Now, obviously, my paint job wasn't all that great because you can still see a little yellow on the sides. All right. There are ways of correcting for that. This isn't really a workshop on how to do this. I just want to make you aware of what the slider does. All right. But you can use it in combination with your range mask. All right. And be able to now go ahead and just target those very specific areas. All right. And of course you can get it. All right. There we go. So now I'm able to finesse it a little bit more by going in and cleaning up. So you can get better results. You got to take your time. I'm not going to waste your time by me editing this, perfectly, but it allows you to make those little color changes for whatever reason you need something changed from one color to the other. All right. Now, why is this here? All right. So let me reset that. Because previously, without that hue slider, if you wanted to make some kind of color change, the only other thing you had was either the temperature, the tint, or this color thing down here. All right. Which, as you can see, it's really not doing very much of anything. All right. The color is not doing anything. All right. If I make a temperature, all right, all it's doing is taking that yellow that's already there, making it cooler or making it warmer. All right. Or adding a green tint. So now it looks really neon. It's adding a red tint. So it's really not doing very much of anything to that yellow. Okay. So that hue slider now allows you to make that yellow into a green jacket. Okay. If that's what you need. Okay. Like I said, when I started this, not everybody needs this tool. There may not be a lot of practical uses for your everyday photography, but if you're a product photographer like me and you need to change, a small little logo from yellow to red, and you don't want to open up, Photoshop just to make that change, you can very easily do it in Lightroom and kind of sort of get away with it. All right. So that is probably one of the bigger ones. All right. Now, the other thing is, all right, just like previously when you held the Shift key to make the fine adjustments, this actually has a checkbox that allows you to check in order to make fine adjustments. All right, so you can get to the area sort of where you want. All right, check that, and then you can make your fine adjustments. So I can make broad changes with the mouse, but you can see that it's making very small movements with the slider. Okay, you can also do this with a shortcut shortcut with the keyboard, and that's your Alt key. All right. For Mac users, it's what? Your Option key, right? You just press and hold. You can see that it temporarily checks that and does the same thing, right? And then when you let go of the Alt key, it goes back to its normal state. Okay? Any questions about this? I know I've had a lot of people wondering how this comes into play. So who's got questions about this? Anybody? We're good? Okay. All right. On to, let's see. All right. In the crop tool, all right. This is again another one of those little minor changes, but apparently this is something that people required because for some reason, I don't know. All right. If you've ever listened to my discussion on breaking or going beyond the rule of thirds, you've heard me talk about other compositional grids. And Lightroom actually has those built into it. When you go to the crop tool, which is again in the local adjustments, all right, when you go to the crop tool, you will see that there are a variety of overlays, all right. In this case, it's the golden spiral, but if you hit the letter O, it will cycle through. Let me just go to, why is it, there we go. All right, the typical grid that most people will see, which is the default grid, is the rule of thirds, okay? But O, and it's going to cycle through a variety of grids, everything from dynamic triangles to this one, which is the new one. So simple. It's the central line. All right. So for those people who like central compositions, all right, and there's nothing wrong with a central composition, as you can see in this case, that central guide allows you to be a little bit more precise with your placements. Okay. And of course, if you keep clicking through the letter O, it's going to bring you through all the other ones. Now, some of these grids have variations, all right? So, for example, this one here, which is our spiral, all right? You'll notice that it's in the upper right-hand corner. What if I want it in the lower left corner? Well, if I hit the Shift, press and hold the Shift key, and then hit the letter O, it's going to toggle through variations of that one grid. All right. Position with the appropriate grid in the appropriate orientation for what it is that I'm looking to do. All right. So Shift O brings you through all of those. Okay. And then the regular O brings you through the normal grids. All right. Okay. We're asking for that. All right. Now to get into some of the heavier duty changes. Let me get out of grid mode. All right. Now, you're probably aware that Lightroom comes comes with a bunch of default presets. All right. This latest update, they've added a bunch more presets. All right. So they have a bunch of default presets here. Actually, let me close this. Make this a little bit bigger. All right, so we have a bunch of Adobe presets, okay? Plus, there's one for your camera settings, all right? And what it's going to do, it's going to take whatever you shot at on your camera. It's going to default to those presets, okay? So you can see, all right, my default preset for my camera looks pretty horrendous, all right, because obviously I was photographing myself in and amongst trees, on grass, wearing a green shirt. I'm surrounded 360 degrees by green. That's affecting my image. So the camera settings actually is pulling the information straight off the camera and loading it in. But it comes preset with a bunch of Adobe color references, including Adobe Landscape, Adobe Portrait, Adobe Vivid, okay, a bunch of black and white stuff, some curve adjustments, some grain. You can add grain, so you can have fun with some of these presets. I have a love-hate relation with, pre-designed presets that other people design, simply because they do stuff that I probably will never use, so they're just taking up space. All right. If that's the case, and you say, you know what, I will never use any of those. Like, for example, it comes with a bunch of vignettes. All right, none, light, medium, heavy. I have my own presets for vignettes. I will never, ever use any of these. The nice thing is, I can right-click, hit Manage Presets, and I can uncheck whatever I don't want to see. All right, so I deselect my vignette, I say Save, and it removes it from view. Okay, so that's a nice little feature. All right, it allows you to kind of clear up some of this real estate. As we all know, especially if you're working on a smaller screen, real estate is a premium. All right. Speaking of real estate, this is nothing new. I'm just going to mention it. But if real estate is a premium for you, if you have a small screen, on each one of these tabs, all right, if you go over, or if you right click on any of them, there's a function called solo mode. All right. When you click on that, what it means is, all right, by default, Lightroom comes with that checked off. That means if I open up one tab and I open up the next tab, it's going to keep that tab open. And if I open up the third tab, all right, it's going to keep the others open. So now, if I want to go from one tab at the top to one tab at the bottom, I have to scroll through all this junk to get to what I need. All right, right click on the tab and hit select solo mode. All right, what that means is when you click off of one tab onto another, it's going to close the previous tab and open up the new tab. All right, so it'll only keep one tab open at a time. This is a great way of conserving, desktop space. If for some reason you say, hey, I need two tabs open, all you got to do is hit the Shift key, click on one, Shift key, click on the other one, and you can open up as many tabs as you want. All right. I'll do this occasionally, but most of the time I will keep it just on solo mode. Now, here's the kicker that I wish Lightroom would do something about. You have to do that in every single module both on the left and on the right. So if you click solo mode on the left-hand side, you also have to do it on the right-hand side. All right? They're not linked together. And if you do it on the develop module, you also have to go to the library module and click it there. It doesn't travel across. Hopefully someday they'll do a one-click all. Who knows? Okay? All right. Now, speaking of presets, something that they added a little bit while back, but I just want to bring it up because it's still fairly new. If I want to export multiple images, all right, I just select the images, all right, right click, export, all right, and it gives me all my presets. I can just click on the one and it automatically sends it out. But what if I want to say, I want to take this flower and I want to share it in my, on my portfolio, and I want to upload it to my social media, and I want to share it on a forum. Now, for me, each one of those three has 3 different types of presets because I export them tend to go high resolution. For social media, I lower the resolution and add a watermark. I brand it. But for the forum, it shares the same resolution as social media, but I remove the watermark. Okay? So that one image, in order to go to 3 different places, will have 3 different presets. So previously, I would have to export them one at a time. Once to the forum, once to the social media, and the third time for the portfolio platform. Now, we have the ability to go ahead and export to multiple ones. So we can't do it with the quick export off this list. We actually have to go to the top where it says just regular export, right? All right, or you can go file export. Okay, and the one thing you'll notice on the left-hand side of all your presets is now a little checkbox. So now I can say I'm going to export it to my forum, I'm going to export it to my social media, and I'm going to export it to my portfolio. I select all 3, and in one button, I can batch export. All right. Now, here's a little caveat. All right. My social media and my forum image exports go to the exact same folder. Okay. And they all get named the exact same way. So that's going to present a problem if I export one image to both presets at the same time. There's going to be a conflict, all right, because they both want to go to the same place with the exact same name. And we all know we can't have the exact file in the exact place with the exact same name. It just doesn't work in the world of computing. All right, so as soon as I hit batch export, it comes up with a dialog box. And it says, okay, here's where we're having our problems. All right. They're all having the same name, and these 2 are going to the same place. So this allows me to make a change in one of those without having to rewrite my preset. Okay. Now that this function is available, I will probably consider going back and modifying my presets to accommodate this. All right. But it gives you one point of reference here that you can go in and change and make the adjustments and say, okay, well, this one is going to be underscore forum. And now when I hit export, it's going to take one of those and just rename it so that when I look at it, I know what goes where. All right, make sense? All right. So that's a great feature to save time, especially when you're sharing that one image in multiple places like I do. Okay? All right. Still no questions? We're still good? Yeah. Different presets. All right. So, like for example, in that last example that I gave, my forum. Let me close these. All right. When you build your preset, you go down the line. All right. And the second to the bottom one is watermarking. All right. If you click on this, it's going to say, I want it watermarked. And then you have the option of selecting either a preset that you built, or you can edit kind of like the default that Lightroom gives you. All right. For my images that go to my forum, I have no watermark. All right. I tend to teach on forums, so most of the images are in conjunction with some type of, lesson. However, when I upload that same image to Facebook, all right, on Facebook, I don't know where that image may end up. I want to brand it. So on my social media preset, you will see that one has a watermark. Okay. So this allows me because first of all, I built these presets. I know what they do. I can say, oh, this one, I don't need a watermark. I'm going to export as forum, even though it may be going somewhere else. All right. Just because I know it's the same exact settings. The only difference is this one does not have a watermark. All right. So hopefully that answers the question. All right. When I build presets, I tend to build presets that are for a very specific purpose. Okay. If I can make a preset, what I do is I look at my needs and I say, okay, which one of these needs overlaps each other? All right. And then I group by, how they overlap. All right. And then I'll build a preset for those needs. That way I don't have, 150 presets that the only difference is 15 pixels. That doesn't make sense. Okay. All right. Where am I? Let's see. Okay. So with presets, the other thing, if you go to edit preferences, go to where it says Lightroom, bring down that menu and the preferences should be there. But when you go to your preferences menu, the second one is presets. All right. They've added a section here that allows you to create import presets. They call them raw defaults, but basically they're import presets based on cameras. All right. So for example, you can say, well, everything taken with my Canon 5D are going to have this preset. Everything with my 7D are going to have this preset. So, for example, if you find that your 5D makes everything a little bit too magenta, and apply it every time Lightroom imports anything that comes off from that particular camera. All right. So now you can make them camera specific. All right, which is a good thing, especially especially for those of you who have multiple bodies and you find that one camera and the other one, just there's a slight difference between the two. All right, this allows you to correct for that slight difference. Okay. So you can do, Adobe defaults, you can do camera settings, or you can do any of your presets. All right, and it's going to be specific to a particular camera model. And you can build as many presets here for as many cameras as you have. Okay. All right. If you want to learn more, there's a little link there that'll take you to a article on Adobe where you can learn more. This is not about teaching all of these different form factors. It's just making you aware of what the changes are. Most of us will probably never use that. All right. So, but if you find the need for it, it's now there. All right. And now you know where to find it. All right. The other thing with presets, let me go to the Develop module. All right. Now, one of the things with presets is that, that I like to teach is try not to have a preset that is loaded with everything on it, because then at that point it becomes a one-trick pony that's hard to break away from. All right. And secondly, if you have a bunch of them, because there's so much packed into them, you tend to forget, what did I build into it? All right. So rather than do one-trick ponies, I tend to teach build presets with a specific purpose. Now, in my opinion, the purpose of a preset is to speed up a process. Okay? And if I can do it with one click instead of 3, that saves me 2 clicks. Make sense? All right, so my presets tend to be things that I do on a constant basis. All right, and I kind of group them into a couple of different sections, I guess you can call it, based on where in my workflow I'm applying them and what the need is. So, for example, I have developed presets that I never use when I'm developing. They get applied when I first import. All right. And those of you who have taken my workshops on preset building know that I have one called Pop and Squat. And my Pop and Squat, all right, again, it's labeled so that I know what it means. All right. You guys probably don't know what Pop and Squat means. Doesn't make sense to you, but it makes a lot of sense to me. All right. It means that it adds pop to my image. All right. And squat means when it's first coming off the card, it's landing in my catalog and just squatting there until I'm ready to do some editing to it. So that's my pop and squat. The squat tells me that it's done on the initial import, and the pop is kind of giving me an idea of what the preset's doing. So that preset adds lens correction, color correction, some texture and clarity adding, and it does a minimal amount of contrast, not through the contrast curve, but through my highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks adjustment. So it does a lot in one little preset, all right? And the nice thing about it is I don't have to think about it. Lightroom does this automatically for me without me even having to do it. Because I realized really early on, I was doing this to every single image that I was editing. All right. So rather than me wasting time moving all these sliders all the time, I said, you know what, Lightroom, you do it. Okay. The only problem is certain presets did not fit globally across the board. All right. For example, right, exposure is one of those things that doesn't fly across the board, because how many times have you taken multiple exposures in order to make sure you get the right one, where one's a little over, one's a little under, and one's just right? All right, kind of like the Goldilocks theory. All right, but if I apply a exposure preset to all those three, it's going to change. It's going to alter all three of them across the board, and it may not be the right choice. All right, so there are limitations. Okay, the other limitation was with noise reduction. Okay, would you apply noise reduction to a photograph shot at ISO 100? Probably not. But something shot at 1800 or 6400, you will probably apply noise reduction, because at that point it needs it. Okay? The problem was, now there was not one preset that you can apply across the board for varying ISO differences. Lightroom finally fixed that. All right, they have what's called a ISO variant preset. Okay, so let me explain how this works. And I don't even know if I have a. Yes, I do. Okay, here we go. All right, I have two images. Okay, I have two images, same subject, taken roughly at the same time, believe it or not. One was taken at a very high ISO, all right, which is the brighter one, way over there. And this one here was shot at ISO 100. Okay, so let me see if I can. All right, so this one was shot at 1600 ISO. You can see it right there in the corner. And this one was shot at ISO 100. Okay. So now I want to build a preset that adds noise reduction. Okay. Now, typically, when you add noise reduction, it softens the image a little bit. So you need to compensate for that by adding a little bit of sharpening. Okay. Do I want to add sharpening to an ISO 100 image? Absolutely not. Okay. Or actually, yeah, probably not. All right. Do I want to add a lot of sharpening to an ISO 1600? You got to be careful, because you might sharpen, the grain a little bit too much. So you have to find that balance. Okay. So the nice thing about this new way of creating a preset is that Lightroom now will look at the difference in ISOs between two selected images that you select. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to use one at 100 ISO and another one at 1600. Okay, because for me, normally, I very, very, very seldom go above 1600. My typical shooting is anywhere between 800 and 100. All right. So I'm actually going to build one for 1600 for those occasions that I do go over there. All right. The times that I go above 1600, nil to, 1/1000th of a 1%. Okay. I'm not going to worry about that. I'll cross that bridge should that ever happen. Okay. So I'm building a preset that works with my normal workflow. All right. So in this case, we're going to need two images, one at 100 and one at your higher ISO. Okay. You have both selected, and we're going to add a new preset. Okay. And, oh, no, sorry. Let me back it up. What you want to do is make sure that you do your edits first. Right? I'm going to, let's see, zoom in. Yeah, I guess right there. All right, and I'm going to apply my noise reduction. Okay. And I'm going to add my masking. All right, if you don't know how I'm doing this, maybe we'll do less on this. All right, so I'm going to make I'm going to make my adjustments for my 1600 ISO so that it looks good. I am going to then go to my 100 ISO, all right? And obviously that doesn't need a lot of noise reduction, so I'm going to keep the noise reduction off, all right? But I want to add a little bit of sharpening, to the edges, whatever it is, all right? I now have both images edited. Okay, I'm going to select both in the film strip. Okay, so now I have two images selected. Normally, for most presets, you're just going to have one. In this case, you're going to have two. One at 100, one at 1600. I'm going to go to my presets, click on Create Preset. I'm going to go to my noise reduction. All right, I'm going to make everything else. Actually, let me do it the right way. I usually tell people the first thing you do, come down to the bottom and check none. You want to make sure this is all clear. All right. The only thing that should be on is your process version, which is what version Lightroom you're using. All right. The processing engine in Lightroom. All right. So it's going to maintain that information. All right. Once it's all cleared out, I am going to go ahead and hit noise reduction. All right. I'm going to give it a new preset name. In this case, ISO variant and R. All right. So ISO variant noise reduction. And I am going to put it into my own little personal folder that's for specifically noise and sharpen. Okay. So it's going to put it into that folder. Okay. Here's the trick. Down at the bottom, this is brand new. ISO settings, create ISO adaptive preset. Make sure that's checked. Okay. I'm now going to say create. And I now have an ISO variant noise reduction. Okay. So now I can go to another image. Let me see. This one here. This is at ISO 1600. Okay. So I'm going to hit that ISO variant. And it's applied all the noise reduction. All right. And you notice how I don't know if you can see it, but it reduced all the noise. All right, so if I click between the two, can you see the difference? Maybe not. All right, but it applied it according to that 1600. I don't know if I have one for 800. Let me see. Come on. I don't think I have one in between. I probably should have. Come on. What the heck? There we go. No, I only have 100 and 1600. All right, but let me see if I can find. Oh, here we go. All right, here's one at ISO 800. Okay, I'm going to take that very same ISO variant and click on it. All right, and you're going to notice that the luminance didn't go as high as for the 1600. All right, but it's still not at where the 100 ISO would be. All right, so it finds that median between the two, and it applies it, and you can see it does a fairly decent job at finding that sweet spot between the two. Okay, so this is a big boom for those of you who like presets to do a lot of the work for you, like I do. All right, so guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to be rebuilding a lot of my presets to take advantage of this ISO variance. All right, for those images where the ISO makes a difference onto how much I apply a particular setting, I'm going to modify my presets to take advantage of that. All right, and noise reduction and sharpening are just two off the top of my head that I know work really, really well with ISO variants. All right. This is heavy duty stuff. I know it's a little bit more advanced. Does anybody have any questions? All right. If you don't know how to build proper presets and it's something you want to learn, hit me up in the Facebook chat. Let me know you're interested, and maybe we'll put it into one of the future Lightroom workshops, okay? All right, so that's ISO adaptive. Okay, now the last few, I'm just going to mention, they probably have absolutely no need in your world. A bunch of new camera profiles and a bunch of new lens profiles. They try to keep up with that, but if a camera is brand new on the market, it typically takes Adobe 1 to 2 months to update the lens and camera profiles for those cameras. All right, so they just did a major overhaul of the lens and camera support. Okay. This is one I could never understand. It's nothing new, but Lightroom has had video support for video, believe it or not. You can do a certain amount of processing to videos. Why? I don't know, but it's in there. They just added HEVC format, which is a pretty standard format with a lot of the cell phones. So if you take a bunch of little cell phone video clips, you can load them into Lightroom, and Lightroom will now recognize them, and you can do a certain amount of tweaking. I think you can do like color correction, sharpening, things like that. I don't play with it, so I'm not that familiar with it. I just wanted to let you know. And for you Mac users, Lightroom added AVI support for AVI video. And then the other thing that Lightroom added is 3D projection metadata. Again, one of those things that most photographers don't work with, but those in the Photoshop and the 3D realm who do anything with kind of 3D mapping, any of that information that's stored in the EXIF file is now readable by Lightroom. Do what you need to with that information. I don't use it. I don't do anything with 3D in Lightroom, so go figure. But anyhow, that's all the major updates on Lightroom. As you can see, some of them are, really useful. Some of them are like, I'll never use them. So hopefully you now have a better sense of what Lightroom did. Okay. Any questions? No questions? All right, guys. Again, I want to make another shout out to all my Patreons for your support. If you feel that what I do is beneficial and you want to help support my channel and my teaching, please visit Learn Photography with Duck on Patreon and sign up. Every little bit helps, and it does go to the channel. It doesn't go for anything else. All right, I'm turning it around and putting it back into this system. Okay, so it's going to be money well spent. $5 a month is the minimum. If you want to do $1 a month, you can do $1 a month. If you want to do a one-shot deal, you can do a one-shot deal. All right. Patreon is very flexible. So, but as far as the supports that I set up, I think I have 5, 10, and 20 or something like that. But $5 a month, bought Zoom. All right. So money well spent. All right. Like I said, I recorded this. All right. So if I can upload it later today, I'll upload it later today to YouTube. If not, it'll probably be up tomorrow. Just look for Learn Photography with Duck on YouTube. If you can, support me there. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. I want to try to get to 50 subscribers on YouTube. If I can hit that, that'll be a big milestone for me. I know I'm just a little guy, competing with, the Matt Klaskowskis and the Fronos Photo and even our very own Connecticut people, Tony and Chelsea with, hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I don't aspire for that. If I can get to 50, you guys are golden. I don't aspire for very much. So, again, Hartford on the 25th. If you want to join us in Norwich at 10 o'clock in the morning for the walk around, we're going to follow it up on Monday with editing the photos from that walk right here on Zoom. That's going to be a separate Zoom address than this one. All right. So if you have this one, you want to save it because this is going to be my regular Monday nights. That's going to now replace the previous Google Meets. All right. So this address will get you in next Monday and the following Monday after that. Okay. And again, when I schedule the multiplicity shot, I will post that on Facebook. If you're not a member of my Facebook group, if you came to this by way of Hartford County or North Haven Camera Club or Candlewood Camera Club, go ahead and join my group. That way you can always go straight to the event page and get all the information. All right, guys. I learn photography with Duck. Here, I'll put it. There we go. Learn photography with Duck. Oh, wait, that way. Facebook, yes. Yeah. The meetup group that I previously had is, as of this month, will be gone. I am not renewing Meetup. Meetup has really gone down the tubes. So yeah, so I'm not going to renew that subscription. Yeah, you know it was about 3 years ago that they started going down, and I'm surprised they lasted this long. Oh, I did not know they were sold a second time. That's interesting. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much, Doc.
Next Monday, it's all about the changes in Photoshop. So hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.